member here for the first time. I was expecting two. I won't name them.
Yes, there are a couple here.
Who have we got, Bill?
Do you want to...
I'm Emily. I'm one of the directors at Essex Fire.
Oh, right, okay.
I'm Dinesh Vinkam. I'm representing Healthwatch Essex.
Healthwatch Essex.
Good morning. Right, welcome. You're very welcome. We will go round the room. I want to just say I will keep things moving along today, if I can. I'm very sorry about the vast amount of paper you got at unacceptably late notice over the weekend on Monday. And I'm really sorry because it's very rich stuff in there. It is very good. Officers were under great pressure to get it finished. So when I say unacceptable, I'm not having a go at you all. Not really. Well, not really. So we will try to get to the briefing early. There's much rich material in there. We will take a couple of items. You'll see we live in a fast-changing world. So when we do the devolution update in a minute, I've invited the ICB chairs to say anything they feel they can say at this very early stage following the announcements last week. What's my other points to make, Will? Oh, yes. Right. And if anybody, can I just check, there are two noting papers, one about health and housing and one about the VCS. Does anybody have any questions to raise on those? Otherwise, they will just be taken as read. Okay. Therefore, Will, do you want to, who's doing the hygiene announcements?
I can do that. Just to confirm, as this is a public meeting, it's being live broadcast to the nation and to the world via YouTube, and a recording will be available afterwards on the Council's YouTube channel. And just a reminder that the speakers are incredibly sensitive and will pick up all sorts of whispering and rustling and so on. We're not expecting a fire drill this morning, so if the alarm does sound, please follow the officers out of the building and gather in the cathedral grounds. I would just say, of course, that even if it was a drill, you'd still have to follow officers out and go into the cathedral grounds, so I'm not quite sure why we have to say that. But please understand, we have seated board members here in this circle or semicircle here, because there's little space, but if you wish to speak and you're sitting at the back, it was very, very welcome. If you have the opportunity, if you could come forward when you speak so you can be heard and picked up, that would be great. There are some spaces here to do so if you want to come and sit at the table, particularly when presenting. And just to say...
Gosh, you're getting longer and longer.
Yes, people online...
yes, well, we'll go round the room and then we'll do the online, okay? So we will go round the room. Could I ask those at the back to be compassionate for those of us who are getting old and whose hearing's not quite what it was. So if you can speak in an unnaturally loud tone, that'd be great. So John Spence, Cabinet Member for Children's Services, Adult Social Care, Public Health and Integration, and Chair of this board. Will?
Will Hooper, Senior Strategy Advisor in the Cabinet Office and Advisor to John Spence.
Right, just round the room, Will.
Chloe O'Malley, Democrat.
Tom Walker, Executive Director at Essex Care Council.
Morning everybody, Jane Gardner, Deputy Police Fire and Crime Commissioner for Essex, here for Roger Hurst.
Morning everybody, Councillor Peter Davey. I'm the NALC Vice Chair for Finance and also the Essex Association of Local Councils Vice Chair here in Essex.
Good morning everybody, I'm Dr Anna Davey. I'm the Primary Care Representative for Mid and South Essex.
Morning everyone, Dan Doherty. I'm the Alliance Director for Mid Essex, for the Mid and South Essex ICB.
And were we in Paris for rugby?
we weren't, but we were watching.
No doubt we were in the... Yes?
Morning, Mike Thorne, Chair of the Mid and South Essex ICB.
Morning everybody, Will Pope, Chair of Suffolk North East Essex ICB.
Laura Taylor-Green, Executive Director for North East Essex Alliance.
Councillor Lee Scott, Cabinet Member for Planning, Housing and Regeneration for Essex County Council.
And thoroughly good chap. Next.
Paul Burstein, Chair of the Hertfordshire and West Essex ICB.
Yes, Paul.
Ian Tompkins, Levelling Up Director, West Essex, but also here today representing Tony Coles and Dr Jane Helping in both Centre.
Multi-hatter, thank you.
Will Herbert, Head of Integration and Partnerships at ECC.
Sarah Muckle, Director of Wellbeing, Public Health and Communities, in the order right still.
Do we need to do the back row, Bill?
Yeah, would you mind going around the back row as well?
Nathan Rowland, Qualities and Partnership Team.
Hi, Andrew Lowing, Policy Unit.
Amy Ferraro, Policy Unit.
Shams Jalotta, Policy Unit.
Emma Hayward, Cabinet Assistant.
Catherine Thompson, Consultant Public Health at Essex County Council.
Dr Giles Thorpe, Exec Chief Nurse at MSc ICB, but representing Deborah Stewart-Angus as a statutory partner for Essex Safeguarding Adults Board.
Nice to see you.
Ross French, Assistant Director of Commissioning for Children and Young People at Hertfordshire and West Essex ICB. Zoe Oddy, Head of Service HCRG Care Group, representing Lisa Farrell, Director of Ops. Lizzie Kingsford, Head of Services.
It's getting tricky for me now. You shout.
Lizzie Kingsford, Head of Services in North East Essex for the Essex Child and Family Wellbeing Service, here on behalf of Rosie McCann.
Thank you.
Evelyn Terry, Early Years Strategic Lead for Essex County Council.
Chris Martin, Commissioning Director, Essex County Council Children's Services.
Dinesh Venkama, I'm a trustee at Headline representing Sam Glover, the CEO.
Good morning, Karen Hammett, I'm Business Manager for the Essex Safeguarding Children Board.
Excellent.
Paul Secker, Director for Safeguarding Children, Essex County Council.
Good morning, Mark Carbaron, Policy Officer for the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner for Essex.
Morning, Emily Chain-Guest, Director of Public Affairs and Communications for Essex County Fire and Rescue Service, and soon also to be the Office of Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner.
Right, good. Do I do minutes first for public speaking?
Apologies. We've got apologies from...
Oh, yes, sorry, we do it on the line. Right, those online? Whoever that was. Interesting. That was his voice following Newcastle's victory on Sunday. The rumour is he left Wembley eventually yesterday morning.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm not used to using this particular technology. It's not Teams. Sorry about that.
It's all right. Lynette's there, I think.
Councillor Lynette Bowers-Flint, Deputy to Councillor Spence, covering Children's Services.
And do we have Helen yet?
No, but we have Ian.
Oh, Ian. Hello.
Good morning, John. I am the other end of Nick Presmeg as a Liverpool supporter, so we're not in the same room, unfortunately. Good morning, and apologies for not being able to be with you. Ian Davidson, Chief Executive Tendering and Vice Chair of the Board.
I heard you were unwell, but I think really it's just you couldn't bear to leave Suffolk. So, Oh, Tom, hello.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Sorry I can't be there in person today. Tom Lafferty, Chief Executive, Princess Alexandra Hospital. And just to say, the audio coming from the main room is fairly low down in the mix. It's difficult for those online to hear. Just thought I'd point that out.
If anybody can turn it up, I'll be great. Tom, thanks for pointing it out, and very warm welcome. I did try to introduce you earlier. I'm really grateful to you for attending. But nothing much else to do, I suppose. Right.
And just to say, Moira McGrath will be joining online, and she'll be leading on the mental health.
Do we have minutes first?
Apologies from Andrew Kelso, Deborah Stewart-Angus, Jane Halpin, as mentioned, Rebecca Jarvis, as well as from councillors Maxine Sadzer, Mark Hooper, Gina Placey and Kaz Nisby.
Okay. I do think Andrew Kelso resigned some months ago, so just in fairness to him. I've not had any notice of public speakers, so we'll do the minutes of the last meeting. Was everybody content with the...
Ian's.
Which Ian? Tompkins?
Yeah, just one very minor amendment on behalf of Tony Coles. It's on page 12, item 7A, under the 5th bullet point. The sentence reads, "This was not, however, consistent across the whole of Essex." That should read the whole of West Essex.
Right. Thank you. Well spotted. We missed that then.
We did.
Right, okay. Right, thank you. Matters arising, there is an action log there. I have asked that in future you have clear dates when those items that are still in progress we'll have a date for resolution so that you're able to see that. Nathan, were you saying anything to this?
Yes, we've got an update on the Tier 3 arrangements. So Paul Burstow and his team have supplied something which will be circulating around to the group. That is second to last action on the log, so that will be up.
I can't hear you, and I don't think the people online will be able to, therefore.
The second to last action around Tier 3 arrangements, we've received an update on the case study now, so we'll be circulating that round to everybody and be marking that off as closed.
Thank you very much. Can just talk, Tom, were you able to hear that? Tom Lafferty?
Yeah, sorry, it is very, very faint, Chair, unfortunately.
So we will now please just need to project, everybody project, okay? Any other questions on the matters arising? No? Okay. We move to devolution update, after which I'll invite the ICB chairs to say anything they want on health service changes. But Tom, Devo and LGR.
And LGR. So thank you, Chair. There's a short paper which there are no slides. I'll just give you a summary. And in the main, this is for noting the position continues to evolve, but we would like your support both in promoting and responding to the devolution consultation. So the paper gives you a sit rep on where we are. I think most people in the room and online will be familiar with the white paper now, and there have been subsequent steps. So the white paper published in December, the government then wrote out at the start of, well, we responded in January, they wrote again in February, and we are about to submit our interim plan. So the history of that is included. The things that I would just draw attention to in the paper, so on paragraph 3.5, Greater Essex is one of 6 areas in the devolution priority programme. So in other words, we're not doing this alone. There are 6 others, and that means they will be going for the mayoral governance alongside local government reorganisation. All areas across the country have been invited to put forward proposals for local government reorganisation. Paragraph 4.3 is a reminder of the criteria the government has set on local government reorganisation. And paragraph 4.6, we've highlighted the opportunity here. So this can very easily become an inward-looking local government exercise, but actually it is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to reset how the local state works, how we work on outcomes together. We've highlighted some of the other issues on local government reorganisation, and this Friday, so the 21st of March, is when the Greater Essex interim plan will be submitted to government. That's just working its way through every authority. Essex County Council Cabinet signed it off yesterday. And in summary, that is basically, the Minister has called it a temperature check, the work that we are doing towards proposals rather than a definitive proposal. And it is worth noting that some authorities have put their name in principle to a 5 unitary model, so 5 new unitaries. Essex County Council has not done that, and we will follow the evidence, and that will inform the final submission. That submission has to be made just before the end of September, so there's about 6 months of work to do now on developing business cases. On devolution, again, summary information included for absolute avoidance of doubt. That means that Greater Essex will be setting a mayoral combined authority up with a mayoral election in 2026. That combined authority will be formed of Southend, Thurrock and Essex County Council, but at the point that new unitaries are brought into existence, those new unitaries would become the constituent authority. I've included a diagram in the paper that is the government's diagram showing how they see it working in the future, and then a couple of other points to draw out. Paragraph 5.10, and there is not much detail behind this, but highlight the main issues that might be interesting for this board, i.e. where the government sees the combined authority having a health, wellbeing and public service reform set of responsibilities. And I should have said earlier that in the white paper itself, it hints at, but again provides no real detail on the alignment of public service boundaries. We have that with the PFCC here in Essex, but obviously the health system boundaries are not coterminous. Those, John, are really the main issues that I wanted to draw attention to. Is really raising awareness and giving a bit of a sit rep on the position. There are various links to the detailed interim plan that will go into government. And as I began the consultation on setting up the mayoral combined authority, so not local government reorganisation, just the devolution part is live. Your support, your organisation's support in promoting it, and ideally responding, and even better, ideally responding supportively to the creation of the mayoral combined authority is really the priority action between now and the 13th of April. So I'll pause there, John.
So just to clarify, because I heard you use the word "our" in 3 different contexts there, so I'm just sharing with you. Our can mean ECC, so our response to the devolution consultation is Essex County Council. Yes?
Yes, we will be responding.
And then our, in the terms of the development and the shaping of strategic mayoral authority, is Essex South End and Thurrock. And so just to understand, you give a timetable, and then the other hour can be the totality of leaders and chief executives representing all 15 local authorities across Greater Essex, of which we are just one.
Correct. Do you want me to just...
No, that's fine. I think hopefully people got it. The question was going to, you gave a timetable for when the detailed proposals for local government are going in September. Yeah. What are the timescales for clarification as to what responsibilities we are proposing fall into the mayoral authority?
Yeah. So on the powers that will come to the mayor, so if you go back under the previous government, devolution arrangements tended to be negotiated. What this government has said is any mayoral combined authority will receive these powers, and they're specified in the white paper, and that will be a more automatic conferral of powers. They then create something called established combined authorities, which after 18 months or longer will receive further powers. So in other words, there's no negotiation on the detail of what will come to the Greater Essex Combined Authority in the first instance. And this is why the government, so in other places, it tends to be the local authorities, the constituent authorities who lead the consultation, but the government has chosen to lead that consultation across all 6 areas, and hence the hour is us as ECC will be responding to that singularly. So the white paper, John, in many areas, and I would say this is the case on the powers most of interest to this board, gives quite general descriptions, and it is worth also saying that a lot of the powers are about influence and engagement, e.g. in running of the railways.
So I'll just observe, Tom, and then I'll pass out to the rest of room for any questions before we move to SABs. The important Connect to Work initiative, which the government's announced, which our ICBs all involved as well, they've all had this about getting more people into work. It's very much linked to yesterday in a different way. Yeah. Says that the commissioning will sit with the mayoral authority. And that's not with the established mayoral authority. So I just leave that with you, okay? So the questions of Tom in this tangled web of devolution and LGR.
Ian Davidson, Peter Davey, Jane Gardner.
Let me take the 3 together and then leave you to come back. Tom? Sorry, Ian Davidson.
Sorry, thank you, John. Mine was more a couple of clarifications, if you like, because obviously of working on that. So the mayoralty, one of the important things for the mayoralty will be around its strategic role, and the devolved powers that are government devolved. It's not setting up another tier of government, of local government, and so therefore, hence why the district councils are supportive in terms of the electoral mayor with things like transportation, strategic planning, and the work around skills, which are all really important. In terms of local government reorganisation, which is a different set of legislation, however, is linked, there is a submission which is required to go in by Friday, 21st of March, which is from all 15 local authorities, and has been agreed by all 15 local authorities, or is in the process of being agreed by their processes, which will go to government, which will basically be, yes, continue to the submission for the 26th of September, which is then around much more detail around what local government reorganisation will look like. And as Tom said, is that some authorities are supportive of 5. Some are saying actually we want to do some more work before we make that decision. In terms of the work which is being done at the moment, they're in a series of work streams. One of those, though, I think is really important for this meeting is about how we don't lose the fantastic partnerships we have with our health colleagues. And if I may be parochial just for a moment, those in Suffolk and North East Essex, the ICB there, it is so important because it's the sort of work which has reduced the health index, reduced suicide rates, and is about the sort of work is that we don't lose that in that transition time or indeed in any new configuration. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Ian. I'm sorry I got your name wrong. Peter Davey.
Yes, thank you, John. Just to clarify, on the government launched its consultation on devolution, which ends on April 13th. We're encouraging nationally and also across Essex, every town and parish council, which there's 10,000 in England, to respond individually and collectively to this particular paper.
Thank you. And who's next? Ian. Oh, Jane Gardner.
Thanks, Chair. Just a point of clarity, really. When you describe the R's, of course, the wider R is including the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, because as you'll see at 5.13, 5.14, that has a significant impact on where the functions of the PFCC will sit in the future. So just
thank you very much. Well done. Thank you. Anybody else? So, ICB chairs, I don't know what you feel you can say at this stage about government announcements last Wednesday, Thursday. Who's going to do it?
We've nominated a spokesperson.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, let me just start. I mean, I think 2 or 3 things really. I was struck by the comment just now about a once-in-a-generation reform of local government. That's not a term one could use to describe local NHS reforms, which tend to be on a more frequent cycle than that. So what can we say? I think we can say 2 or 3 things. One, the reforms that have been announced so far include the abolition of NHS England and its return to the Department of Health and Social Care, and changes to the resourcing and roles of integrated care boards. Currently, that reform programme is driven by a goal of a 50% reduction in the running costs of integrated care boards. And I think it'd be fair to say that currently we are awaiting further guidance from NHS England and the department, particularly I think in regards to being clearer about the roles and functions that ICBs will discharge going forward within that reduced funding envelope, and also I think those functions that might be discharged at a different level by NHS providers, particularly at a place level. So colleagues are very welcome to ask us questions. Most of them will be ones where we will have to refer you to the fact that we are awaiting more detail. But as soon as we have that detail, we'll be very keen, all 3 of us, to brief stakeholders and other interested colleagues in detail about what the next steps will be.
So in that spirit that the ICB chairs themselves haven't had any detail yet, are there any questions? Clearly we will, over the coming months, all be working well together in both these LGR agendas. And I think I've counted up, and I'm not making any political point, I think there may be 7 once-in-a-generation topics now. It may soon match our purpose of 14 billion black holes, whatever. Right, enough. Thank you, Paul, very much for that. Now, we were hoping by now to have the guidelines for the Better Care Fund. Will Herbert, do we?
Yep. So we've had the criteria and the broad guidelines. We are still awaiting a number of clarifications around things like how the targets are set and some of the uplifts. We've only just had confirmation of the figures. I think about 3 or 4 versions of the NHS minimum contribution uplifts were published. So finally got confirmation on those, so can give a bit of an update on the planning and outline some of the next steps. So the total for the BCF is 214.7 million this year. That does see an uplift to the minimum contribution to adult social care, and it includes an increase to the DFG that was announced at the end of the previous year, and that amount will carry forward. In real terms, that is a cut though. So we've seen increases in inflation, national insurance contributions and demand. So we're still in a position of trying to do more with less on the BCF. There's been some change to the criteria, which does help us look a little more broadly. So there's been a focus around a shift from sickness to prevention. To support that, we've seen the merging of the IBCF and the discharge grant on the local authority side into a local authority better care grant. So that gives us some more flexibilities in what we can look at there, noting the pressures around finances. The metrics have also been simplified. We now only have 3 metrics, one around emergency admissions to hospital, a new metric around discharge delays, which is where some of the conversation nationally around how that's measured is still ongoing, and we're awaiting a little clarification there on how we set the targets for that. And then a piece around long-term admissions to residential care, which I think has been a long-standing metric for the BCF. Over the last sort of month or so, we've been working with our alliances and our local better care fund groups and priorities for the narrative plan. We've outlined 5 broad areas we want to work around and utilise the BCF at local level to help implement. First is around neighbourhoods and place-based integration. Then we have 2 around home first, one supporting care coordination to get people home first, and another around supporting the market in terms of capacity and development to help deliver that. Then, as I noted, that shift around early help and prevention, we've got a priority there and looking at what local schemes we can implement to support that. And I think over the years we've looked at the BCF and it does tend to be focused on older people. So there's a real drive this year to look at how we can support an increasing number of schemes on learning disabilities, mental health and physical and sensory impairment. Timelines for submission, as ever, are incredibly tight and seem to get tighter each year, particularly with the delays to guidance and clarifications. So we do have to submit a plan by the 31st. We are seeking endorsement from the board that sign-off from the Health and Wellbeing Board will be delegated to Councillor Spence. We are aiming to circulate a draft of the planning template, the narrative plan and the capacity and demand plan by the 24th, so people will have opportunity to comment on that. But as I say, most of the detail will have gone through alliances before then as well. I think that's everything. If there are any questions.
Any questions? There's much going on in this space, of course, as involved in NHS announcements as well, Will. And so on the basis that you will receive a draft of the final submission no later than the 24th of March, and that I ask for any points of critical importance to come back by close of play on the 26th of March, so that I can sign off on the 28th of March before I go off to, I'm going to Egypt actually on holiday, maybe never to be seen again. Esophagus, whatever. Are you content to delegate to the Chair of Health and Wellbeing Board the authority to sign that plan? Yes. I'll be here at the centre. Okay. Thank you very much. So we will deal with that. Right, we come to the mental health strategy, South End, Essex and Thurrock mental health strategy update. Do we have a Moira McGrath yet, virtually or in reality?
We don't. She's due to join online. She's having trouble connecting at the moment. So it's whether this one further.
Well, I'm struggling a bit because I was also asked that she leave early.
Oh, she's here now. Just joined online.
Moira, good morning. So while Moira's just connecting, the purpose of this item is an update. It's also a very useful time to ask questions or raise concerns. Do we have Moira yet?
She's not yet. She's joined, but can't hear her.
Do people, if I could just collect, Will, any questions or concerns people knew before the start that they would want to express? Because I can then try to those. As you arrived at this item, are there any of you that you knew you wanted to raise points on this?
Oh, Sarah.
Which Sarah?
Me.
This
Yeah.
colour.
I guess for me, when I first read the strategy and I've not seen it before, it feels like it's very service focused and there's a lot of emphasis on service. So for me, are we already picking up things around prevention and well-being?
Okay, thank you. Linked to that, I will be asking what the people who are in charge of the strategy think of the Secretary of State's comments on Sunday that far too many people are being diagnosed with mental health issues. So that sort of tacks in with your prevention, early intervention piece. Do we have a Moira yet?
No.
Nick, are you able to talk to this in Moira's absence, or Chris Martin? Can one of you do it?
Sorry, John. It's very difficult to hear the room, John.
Yeah, but I'm trying to speak as loud as I can. I've asked them to turn the volume up. I can't hear Moira at all.
Hi, can you hear me?
Now, is that Moira?
Yeah.
Loud and clear, Moira. Over to you. Did you hear the couple of points that Sarah and I were going to pick up with you? This is not satisfactory. Right. I lost Moira again.
Oh, we can see Moira.
Moira, I think they can hear you if you can hear me.
Apologies, I'm just having some problems with my sound.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
She can't hear us.
She can hear us.
We can hear her, but she can't hear us.
What's the next item, Will?
Next item is the ICS joint forward plan.
I'm going to move to the ICS joint forward plans because I'm guessing this is going to be a shorter item than it might have been at some point. Can I ask if any of the ICB chairs want to talk to this, or any of the ICB executives?
Chair, I can just give a quick summary on behalf, possibly.
Can you hear me?
I think, as long as you can hear me, I'll project my voice, stage voice. Ian Tompkins, Hearts and West Essex. So you'll see in the report that my colleagues Stephen Madden, Philip Reed and Alexander Rowan have produced. There are some summary points there in more detail, but in essence, each integrated care board has made a light touch refresh to its joint forward plan due to the impending 10-year plan and the likelihood of a further refreshed joint forward plan being required post publication of that plan, and also subject possibly to any other further changes in between. And it's proposed, as well as the information we put in the report, it's proposed we come back with a more formal joint update later in the year to reflect the changes made based upon the 10-year plan.
Okay, so we scheduled that for what, September, Ian?
Yes.
So on that basis, there's not much to ask questions about, ladies and gentlemen, is there? But any questions on that? But the idea is we'll get a fuller report in September, and much will have happened by then. Are you all okay? Okay. Right. Have we solved? I'm really sorry about the technology. The linkage with this room is usually very good, and we've not had this audiology treatment, the audibility issue before. Moira, do we have you now? If not.
She has said she's very, very happy to pick up points afterwards if anyone wants to raise it.
Well, it's not quite where we want it to be.
No, indeed.
Right. And I'm guessing that neither Chris nor Nick feel able to talk to the paper.
I hadn't prepared to talk to the paper, John, but also it's very, very difficult to hear anything in the room. I couldn't really hear any of the comments.
Well, we hear you very loud and clear. Can you hear me?
So I gather.
Can you hear me?
Barely.
Well, I'm very sorry about this. So I'm very sorry for the other people who are online if you cannot be heard. So the points that we were making Firstly, that the paper feels very focused on service, and how do we have a strategy that is focused more on prevention. I tied that in with the comments of the Secretary of State, which were about too many people being diagnosed with mental health issues. Are there any other points? I'm assuming somebody will relate these points tomorrow if she can't hear. Were there any other issues people wanted to raise in respect to the mental health strategy? Okay. I will need to leave it to the discretion of those of you online if you can't hear us at all as to how long you stay. There is the facility to dial in, is there not? By phone. So I'll ask those responsible to send this to you. So we are through the mental health piece, we're through the ICB piece. What's next, please?
It's the Essex Safeguarding Children Board.
Well, now we have the Essex. Can you come forward, please? And let's get you to a microphone. If you could swallow the microphone.
Make sure I talk very loudly.
Surprising noises.
Right, so a very helpful report, thank you, on the issues with which the Safeguarding Children's Board is dealing. So it's a big paper, but would you like to highlight 3 or 4 points?
Yeah, I was just briefly, there was a presentation as well as the paper. So I think it's just helpful for me just to explain where the Safeguarding Children's Board is at the moment in terms of the changes we've had through legislation and guidance from government. So many of you will know that Working Together is the guidance for the Essex Safeguarding Children Board, and that sets out how the board will work. So Working Together 2023 set out the requirements for the board to have lead safeguarding partners as well as the delegated safeguarding partners. So the lead safeguarding partners are the chief execs of the ICBs, the local authority and the Chief Constable of Essex Police. They came together in December 2024 and they've agreed the multi-agency safeguarding arrangements plan going forward. So that was published on the ESCB website in December and submitted to government. Clearly, they then delegate their responsibilities down to the delegated safeguarding partners. We've always called those the statutory partners in Essex. So for purposes of who they are the chief nurses or equivalent roles across the 3 ICBs, and the assistant chief constable for Essex Police and the director of children's services for Essex County Council. Those 3 partners or 5 partners for Essex have the responsibility equally and jointly to ensure we have effective safeguarding arrangements in Essex. I'd also like to just mention that they actually came to an agreement around equitable funding since April 2022. So those 5 partners equally fund the work of the Safeguarding Board, which is my support team, but also includes all the child safeguarding practice reviews, learning and development offer, and any other work that we undertake. One of the other significant changes was we've always had independent chairs in safeguarding boards. Working Together abolished the need to have an independent chair and actually said you need to have a partnership chair. So Suffolk and North East Essex Chief Nurse Lisa Nobes has taken that role on for this first year, and then it will move across the partnership as years to follow. Some of you may be aware that we have David Archibald has been our independent chair for some years now in Essex. He's moved into a role of independent scrutineer. So that is a function set out in Working Together with some very specific requirements about being that critical friend and offering that challenge to the partnership. I've realised I do switch between the term partnership and board. In Essex, you're all aware that we have a Children and Young People's Partnership Board, which is why the Safeguarding Board stayed as a board and not a partnership, like it did elsewhere in the country. One of the other things I just wanted to highlight was the role of education. So within Working Together, it talks about including education as a significant partner. It didn't go quite as far as saying a 4th statutory partner, because that requires primary legislation changes. I think they will come in time. In Essex, we work really closely with our education colleagues. So education is represented on all levels of the board that you see within the structure chart that was included in the pack. But we also have included the Director of Education at the Delegated Safeguarding Partners level as well. So Claire Kershaw sits at that level, representing all education. I think it's really important when we use the term education, I am talking from early years through to further education. We're not just talking about schools. As you know, we have a massive education sector across Essex. So So therefore, it's really important that we have a representative model and we use the different forums and links we have back into the actual settings through the education safeguarding team. So I think probably in the report, there's also a bit about the annual report, but clearly we're almost at the point of doing the 24-25 annual report now, so I'm not going to go through that. I'm just going to pass to Paul to talk about reviews, which is an area of work we do quite a lot on.
Could I just ask a point of clarification before you come on to these? Any other questions at this stage? I should know this. You just referred to a Young People's Partnership Board. As wearing my cabinet responsibilities for children's services, I chair the Children's Partnership Board. Is that the same thing?
Sorry, it's the same thing. Sometimes it gets called children, young people, sometimes it's...
No, I quite understand. I just didn't want to make sure I wasn't missing something. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I will speak briefly about child safeguarding practice reviews, which is an important part of the work of the Safeguarding Board. Back in the day, they used to be called serious case reviews. They're now called child safeguarding practice reviews. They are different. The focus is much more on learning. There is an expectation that they will be shorter and more focused. They involve families and their views at different stages of the review, which is quite different from traditional serious case reviews. It involves practitioners who've been involved with the family and working with the family, and we have their contribution to all the reviews we undertake. So as you know, we're a very large authority, so we have a number of serious safeguarding incidents across the county. And child safeguarding practice reviews are very much about what we can learn, whether we could have done anything differently and more effectively. The purpose of the Child Safeguarding Practice Review is to identify how the whole safeguarding system can work together to better safeguard and protect children and young people across Essex. It's to identify specific improvements, either for individual agencies or for the safeguarding system, and where policy and practice may need to change. There is a national panel which oversees child safeguarding practice reviews and serious safeguarding incidents, and they may decide that there needs to be a national review. So you will have heard of or seen or read Arthur and Star, those children that were murdered by their family. Quite possibly there'll be a national review about Sarah Sharif, which I think you would all know about. So the threshold is spelt out in working together. It's where a child has died or has been seriously harmed, where abuse and or neglect is known or suspected, and where there are concerns about how partner agencies have worked together to safeguard and protect children. I'm not going to go through the processes of how we do the review, but there is some detail of that in the report that's been circulated to you. Within 23-24, the report, there were 6 referrals for child safeguarding practice reviews in that period of time. In the last 6 months, we've had 9 referrals for child safeguarding practice reviews, which we're going to have to... Each review costs quite a lot of money because we have an independent chair. So we will look at that, not on the basis of the finance, but on the basis of whether there is significant learning from those reviews. So some of the significant themes, we've done a number of reviews in terms of teenage suicide and young people who very sadly killed themselves. We've had a number of reviews around non-accidental injuries to children, particularly young children, where there has been cumulative neglect and children may have died within those circumstances. We also carried out a review about 18 months ago into sudden unexplained deaths in infancy. And we've had about 20 babies who've died within a 3-year period. So we thought we'd look at each and every one of those babies to see what their circumstances were and what we can learn from that and what we can do differently. Okay. I think the biggest challenge for us is about ensuring that the recommendations from reviews are implemented and integrated into everyone's practice. And then we monitor and oversee that the recommendations are making a difference. So there are wide-ranging themes which emanate from the child safeguarding practice reviews. I've just named some of them. Some of the others would be that we need to focus on involvement and engagement with fathers and male carers. Do we always ensure that we listen to the voice of the child and the young person? The importance of taking into account family histories and family background in our assessments, because that could be quite a helpful predictive factor. Escalation and challenge between multi-agency partners is really important. We recognise that, we are working on that. I think online safety for our children and young people, the impact of social media, all of those of you that have children or grandchildren, we're really concerned about that, and we really need to ensure that there's a whole family approach. I hope that's a quick summary in respect of the child safeguarding practice review space across Essex. I'm happy to take questions if you want to give members of the board that opportunity, John.
Thank you very much. Very interesting, thank you. Any questions? Ian Tompkins.
Yeah, it's not so much a question about that, but just out of it, as a matter of information, we yesterday had a multi-agency discussion with a couple, Vic Goddard Secondary Ed Academy in Harlow, around this kind of issue. And I think the focus that we all agreed on between us was about the importance of prevention and this stuff happening in the first place. Not, obviously what goes on is reactive in case of the reviews and so forth, but it's how we get in at an earlier stage and work better together to provide that all-important support and advice around those many different drivers that can often lead to these situations.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. Sorry?
You want to respond?
Oh.
I would completely agree with what you've just said. I think I would just emphasise that within children's social care, this is a very transformative year that we are going through. There are going to be many changes, which both within the social care space, but also in the multi-agency space. And we are very much trying to emphasise the importance of prevention, of early help, of working with families as soon as they become concerned. So I think that that's not just for social care, that's for everyone around this table, but that's what's going to happen over the next 12 months.
Thank you very much. Ian Davidson.
Thank you, John. My question is a sort of a follow-on from Ian's, really. Are you looking at an analysis when the individual cases are done? Actually, are there trends? Are there issues which are coming out of them, which actually lead to pieces of work which are around specific topics as a result of the analysis of individual cases and what that's showing you? And I'm thinking about, for example, the suicide prevention, for example, in young people. We obviously in Clacton had sort of particular issues at one stage, and identifying early those prevention, such as we've done in the primary schools for Tangri.
So over the last few years, we've actually undertaken 2 thematic reviews of teenage suicide, of young people who have very sadly killed themselves. So back in 2017, we had 9 young people who killed themselves, and then we have just completed a second review looking at the 22 young people who killed themselves across Essex, Southend and Thurrock. And we then came up with recommendations and action plan. From both reviews, we've come up with recommendations and action plans, which have then been implemented by a specific board, which focuses on young people's emotional well-being and their mental health. And so there's been... It's really hard to say that we can prevent all young people, any young person from killing themselves. But I think we've done a lot more work in terms of prevention, particularly around in schools.
Because what your answer to me and could suggest, Paul, is that those reviews each follow down their own line. I'm assuming you're making a heavy focus on understanding common themes, which will give you the predictive signals.
Absolutely.
John, may I come in?
Sarah?
Yeah, so we do have a child death overview panel that meets regularly, and we look at all children and young people's deaths. And the main purpose of that is to look at the factors as to whether it was or was not preventable, and to learn from that, and for that to then inform programmes of work going forward. So that's very much a system that's been in place for some time, and with the purpose of what Ian says, which is from learning from all deaths and understanding where we might have been able to do things differently.
So when you said we, We is, I'm back to my same question, is we public health, are we the system?
So it's we the system, it's children's services, public health, the acute sector and other...
All the partners. Okay.
Yes.
Jane, as we've ended up in suicide prevention here, and it does come up later in the briefing, private briefing, but we must up here. Did you want to say anything on suicide trends that you're seeing at the moment in Essex?
No, I would like to wait till May until we've analysed the figures that have come through. But what I would like to say, John, so thank you for the opportunity, is Paul is very much part of the Suicide Prevention Board, and it's about that bigger piece that we need to learn from all suicides, that we need to take into programmes of work. So I guess what I want to reassure people about is all the parts are joined up. And what I would say is we are heading in the right direction, but wait till May and then we'll be able to give you a full analysis of what's happening across Essex.
Sorry, Will's whispering. Just say it loudly, Will.
Ian Davidson has his hand up.
Ian, can I just check, are you hearing us all right, Ian?
Yes, I can. Thank you, John.
Lynette, are you hearing us all right?
Yes, John, but I find by putting earpods in, it's perfect.
Okay. I don't know if Tom's still with us. Nick, it may be at your end the problem is with audibility. Can you point out? Somebody just ping him a message. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want to be frustrated. Karen, I'm going to thank, I know Ian Davidson wants to come in. I just want to thank you, Karen, for that presentation. I am senior co-parent for Essex, is the way I'm told I am, for children's services. I believe all county councillors and in future all unitary councillors will be co-parents. Does that extend to other partners in the ICBs?
I don't think it does. I don't think so. I think it's a local authority.
Can I maybe just ask for an action about clarification? It'd be quite useful for people to understand. Ian Davidson wants to come back in.
Just very quickly, John, just to say is I think it's really important, obviously, all parts of the sector, as Jane highlighted, are involved, because whether it be housing, whether it be the myriad of other services which we have, whether it be the work which we do with Laura Taylor Green and our alliance, it's important that we're all a part of that and recognising and working on it. But Jane highlighted that, so I'll stop there.
Thank you, Ian. Any other points?
Can I just come back in quickly? It's just to say that I know we've gone down the suicide route around the reviews bit, but it's just to say that all learning from all reviews goes back out into the multi-agency partnership. It informs the learning and development offer that Essex Safeguarding Board have. And also we follow up with agencies on a 6-monthly basis to say, actually, this was the learning from these reviews. Can you tell us the impact of that learning? So that we get examples back to say we are making a difference by doing the reviews.
Thank you. That's great. That was the right answer. Now, what's the name of the gentleman here from Safeguarding Adult Board? Who's here representing Deborah?
It's me, Chair, Giles Thorpe.
Giles, thank you so much for coming. Can I just say, I found that super, if it is an independent Safeguarding Adult Board, but if you felt able to give us an update like that at some point, if you could speak to Deborah, that would be fabulous. Okay? Indeed. It's been very interesting. Thank you. All right. Karen and Paul, thank you very much. And I just want to draw your attention to, on Saturday, I had the privilege of being involved in the Nourishing Our Future conference, which was arranged by members of Sarah's public health team, looking at new research around what's happening with the youngest of young children before they're in any sort of educational setting, but thereafter, with what's going on in the nourishment. They were looking at new research. I believe, Sarah, I've not heard the outcome yet, but I believe agreeing a collaboration on it in the future.
Yes.
We all know how important diet as well as physical activity is in the earliest years of life and setting where those young people will end up in life overall, actually, their ability to absorb education and so on. I do hope, Sarah, there's going to be some sort of communique issued from the meeting with the key points of the research and the key points of agreed action?
Absolutely. There's a briefing being worked on at the minute, should be ready soon.
It was so wonderful to see the best part of 300 people come out for most of a Saturday, mainly from early years and educational settings. It was absolutely super. So, we will ask that be shared to all Health and Wellbeing Board members.
Yes.
All right. I think that's all the bits from me. So that brings us to...
It brings us to strengthening system outcomes through the Essex Child and Family Wellbeing Service. And we have Chris Martin.
And while Chris comes down to the front in order to bellow to us all, can I welcome Beverly Egan as Chair of the Caring Communities Commission. Good morning, Beverly.
Good morning, John.
Very welcome. Audibility issues, so we're all speaking in a very loud voice, Beverly, okay? Right, Chris?
Staying organised, John.
Chair. Good morning, everyone. Two things. This is a nice segue in terms of the presentation we've just had from the Safeguarding Board. So I think what we're going to share with you is a significant contract and area of work which is part of our early help and prevention response to Essex and is illustrative of integration and partnership. So I have colleagues with me to my left from HCRG who are also representing Barnardo's who couldn't make it here today but are a very strong partner in this commission. We have representation in myself in terms of children's services, Catherine in terms of public health, Ros in terms of West Essex ICB, and Carolyn in terms of early years. So if you want an example of integration, I think I have one in front of you right here. What we're going to do today is we're going to give you an update in terms of the Essex Child and Family Wellbeing Service contract, which is provided for us in the main by our colleagues at HCRG and Barnardo's, as well as some smaller local third sector organisations, the Youth Inquiry Service, Home Start, to name a couple that you probably be aware of. I'm going to give you an update as to kind of how we've got to the point in time that we are now. My colleagues at HCRG and Barnardo's are going to share with you how their achievements at this point in time. There's a part two in the workshop after the break, and that is because there's nothing that we are going to share in part two that our colleagues at HCRG and Barnardo's and other providers are not aware of. It's just that we are in year 8 of this contract now. We are thinking about what happens next. It's a 10-year contract, so more or less at about this point in 2 years' time, the new contract will be awarded. And what we don't want to do is compromise our colleagues and our partners at HCRG and Barnardo's in terms of them participating in a conversation about what the future contract would look like. So they are going to leave us in part 2, and then we are going to discuss with the board what we think. But as I say, there's nothing secretive about that. There's nothing that we will be sharing with the board in the second session that our colleagues at HCRG and Barnardo's are not aware of. We just don't want to kind of compromise what I'm assuming your bid in the future.
So Chris, just to clarify, the session at the moment is very much you briefing, taking factual questions of understanding, but then the discussion follows in part 2 of the meeting.
Absolutely. Yes.
How long are you going to be speaking for in total?
What have we got? 25 minutes, I think.
20.
20. We're early, Chair.
Yes. I want to give you a longer time in the workshop, my dear friends. I'm all heart.
So just to give you a bit of background, as I say, we're 8 years into the current contract. The contract consists of what you would ordinarily associate with health visiting, school nursing, children's centres, and in the west of the county, all the kind of community children's health paediatric provision, which we think is pretty unique, and I'll come to that. Just as a recap, we came to this contract through a piece of research well over 10 years ago, and we did a lot of research and discussions with families right the way across Essex and frontline professionals as well, and what they both shared with us kind of mirrored similar findings, really. What families told us, amongst a whole range of things, is that support is quite fragmented, it's very difficult to navigate, it's very inconsistent in terms of the touch points. You'll get different messages and different advice depending on which point of the system you touch. They also said to us that, so it's a bit inconsistent in terms of what the support is provided, what the advice is provided, but the consistent message was that peer support and support through other parents in particular is really valuable, that we should be doing more of that stuff. And that was mirrored in terms of some of the thoughts that frontline professionals also told us, particularly the points around difficult to navigate and an awareness that we might be giving inconsistent messages to families. So we wondered what would it look like if we could adopt a consistent approach. And that also was able to kind of simplify this support down to a set of clear outcomes rather than the 194, and I kid you not, 194 KPIs that used to kind of populate this area that we are currently kind of commissioning and in partnership with HCRG and Barnardo's. So over the last 8 years, the contract has been working towards 23 outcomes that operate across the county and 5 specific outcomes in West Essex. They are focused upon impact. Of course, we are interested in the numbers, but the predominant focus upon our work is around impact and making lives better for children and families in Essex. If anything else, we want to kind of provide that consistent message and that consistent levels of support right the way across the county. In particular, we've given the provider lots of flexibility about how those outcomes can be met. So in this contract, interestingly for us, we are not prescribing a model. What we're really interested in is impact and those outcomes being met, and that affords the provider 2 things really: flexibility across the piece in terms of how those outcomes are met, but also the ability to use local assets in terms of meeting those outcomes. So you may have strong partnerships around certain things in Epping, for example, that you don't necessarily have in Clacton, but we're not asking for a replication of an operational model in Epping and Clacton, but what we are asking for is the same impact, the same outcomes and the same pace. So it's about using kind of local strengths and local assets as well. I'll shut up and I'll let Lizzie and Zoe tell you more about the achievements thus far. I will mention the co-commissioned element in West Essex. So simultaneously with this contract, our partners in West Essex CCG, as they once were, and now West Essex ICB, have co-commissioned that jointly with us. And what that means is for families in West Essex is that they are able to navigate the health support as well as the support that you might ordinarily associate with health visits, school nurse and children's centres. I failed to mention that there are 12 family hubs across the county. There's one family hub more or less in each district council location. But in West Essex, the hubs, and I'll draw your attention to our family hub in Harlow, there is a wealth of support being provided on an integrated basis, and that includes the provision that you would ordinarily associate that is commissioned by the ICB. So a whole range of physiotherapy, speech and language therapy, etc., is all kind of available in one place. So if you, again, I would say this, wouldn't I? If you want a great example of what integrated commissioning and integrated provision looks like, I think we have some great examples in West. And the proof of the pudding is the feedback that families provide us. And I think we have some strong evidence around how families feel that the support in West Essex in particular is more easier to navigate than what it may have been in the past. I'll shut up there and I'll hand over to Lizzie and Zoe.
So I'm going to start. I'm Zoe Oddy. I am Head of Targeted Services and I oversee our school age offer within HCRG. We work really closely in partnership with Barnardo's. So as Chris said, in 2017 we commenced our partnership with Barnardo's and very much a partnership with Essex County Council and Hearts and West Essex ICB. It's very much a shared ambition, and our ambition is to give every child in Essex the best start in life. We knew right from the start that real change wouldn't come from one service alone. It had to come from listening to our families, from working alongside them, working alongside our partner, and building a system that would truly support them. The ambition wasn't ours, and that's been really clear from the start. The ambition with children and young people's, it was families as system partners, and we've shaped our service alongside the local authority and Hearts and West Essex ICB to really meet their ambitions and to enable us to adapt and change. As mentioned in the previous presentation, 2017 was the year of the 9 suicides in 8 months. And that really resonated with us and with our teams around the fact that actually one of the things that came out of that first review was that those children and young people didn't go to anyone. They weren't children and young people that were engaged in services, and they weren't able to go to, and we were really disappointed, even though we weren't necessarily the provider of those services. They hadn't reached out to school nursing, they hadn't reached out to family hubs in the past. So we really rebuilt our services to be much more accessible and visible in our schools and education provisions. so that those young people did have somewhere to go. And we continue to do that, responding to feedback and shifts in systems. So part of the vision was to integrate the Healthy Child Programme and family support services, those services that have previously been under that children's centre offer, into a seamless, accessible system that recognised the needs of families, delivered evidence-based interventions, and was able to measure impact, ensuring that we didn't just do services, we didn't just do to people or deliver inputs, but we created meaningful, real, lasting change. And at the heart of this was a commitment to strengthening family resilience and building a system that works, a system that works together. Obviously we need it to work, but a system that works together rather than a system that works in silos. So 8 years on, I'm really pleased to say that I believe that this is becoming a reality. Through our work, we've seen 60,000 measurable improvements in people's health and wellbeing. We've delivered on all of our key performance metrics, and we are successfully meeting the Department of Health mandated reviews for every family in Essex. But the true impact isn't in numbers, it's in the stories from families, where they've told us how much they feel supported, empowered and heard. Their story is being heard and delivered against. So we deliver a partnership that works for families. It was awarded to Virgin Care, and then we transitioned to become HCRG Care Group in 2021. We've remained completely rooted in partnership, most notably with Barnardo's, who bring invaluable expertise from across the country. They're a national player, particularly in that family support agenda, and we're able to draw on that national provision. What happens in Scotland in schools, we're able to pick that up and bring it into our schools in Essex. What's going on in the Isle of Wight, we're able to adopt some of that best practice and bring that into Essex. But in addition to that, as Chris said, we also have partnerships with YES, with Homestart, with libraries, with our early years settings and schools. Schools and early years are key partners for us. We've linked up with the Parent Carer Forum and Multi-Schools Council to really drive the voices of our service users through our service provision. We also have a range of other local partners. We operate from 37 buildings and sites, 12 of which are mandated family hubs, which ensure that support is accessible to families where and when they need it, where they need it most. But it's more than just about locations. Our hubs are living, breathing spaces where people feel connected and are able to build this offer that meets their needs and their wants. Where families identify that there is a service that's missing, or that there's something that they see in the community that they'd like to do, whether that's, I don't know, I'd like to learn to batch cook, or actually we need a bit more basketball and there's a basketball court outside. We're able to support them to build and grow that provision for themselves and self-run that with as little support or as much support as they need from us. We work alongside our system partners across health, early years, education, social care and across the voluntary sector. We really want to create a joined up system of support. And in terms of the national policies and national frameworks, we don't just align, we try very hard to drive them. You'll know that Barnardo's are heavily engaged in that national footprint in petitioning government for change. We're also strongly linked up with the National Family Hubs Network. We work really closely with the Anna Freud Centre in building and driving system change. We're involved in a number of vanguard projects so that we help to really shape the future for children nationally and bring some of that evidence base back into Essex. One of our greatest successes has been in West Essex, as Chris mentioned, where the partnership commissioning model has created a really truly integrated system. And it goes beyond that. It goes beyond the stuff that's commissioned within this contract. We are a subcontractor within the CAMS provision, so we're able to deliver early help within CAMS within our West Essex family hub, because that's one of our biggest areas. But we also do that within Chelmsford and in Colchester, where you have shared buildings and shared resources. And as many of us have talked about in the past, some of those best conversations about children and young people and children and young people's outcomes happen where people connect in kitchens, where they're making a cup of coffee and are able to have joined up conversations. So Lizzie will cover more about West Essex when I hand over shortly. We know that to be effective, we have to provide support where families are, and we have to connect with them and the reality of the challenges that they're facing. Our family hubs don't just signpost people. We walk alongside families, with practitioners acting not just as deliverers of interventions and deliverers of care or assessors of need, but also as social prescribers and as care navigators. So one of the things that we've implemented that we're really proud of is a if not us then who methodology, where every practitioner is encouraged to ask the question, if it's not me that can provide you with support, who is it? It's going to be somebody in the system and will help you get there, will help you navigate to the right service. This really is early intervention in action. We've made a real impact in reaching families who might otherwise struggle to access support, especially in the face of growing financial pressures, mental health challenges, and the rising needs linked to neurodiversity and additional vulnerabilities. Our system-wide working means that we're not just delivering a service, we're creating an environment where families feel safe, supported, and able to thrive. So some of the key ways that we believe we've made a real difference is in our single point of contact, which is underpinned by a making every contact count and brief intervention methodology, so that when families ring in or come through our digital front door, they or walk into a family hub, they are always met by a friendly face, somebody that genuinely cares, is able to listen to their story and have a conversation that checks things like their readiness for change. Are they able to engage in services and guide them to the right point? We have a hugely successful Healthy Schools programme. I want to say 94, but it might be 92, so I'm going to say 92. 92% of schools across Essex are engaged with our Healthy Schools programme, and that might range from picking up some resources around your PSHE curriculum to a coaching-based piece of support around your behaviour management policy in school, or looking at your school meals plan to ensure that actually we really are developing and building that health-promoting culture. We have a team around the child. We've embedded the team around the child approach and adopted what we have termed the rule of 167. So we know that there are 168 hours in a week, and with the best will in the world, a child or young person might come to us for intervention for one of those hours. And in that 1 hour, they might learn some strategies, they might go away with some information about where they can go for help and advice, and they might leave those 6 lots of 1 hours feeling much better about life and much more able to cope and manage. But it's the 167 hours where they're not with us, where real change happens. That's where I'm able to live and breathe those strategies. It's where I'm with my family who are living the old life that led me into that circumstance in the first place. So in order to make real change happen, we need to work as a team around that family or child or school to help those 167 hours change, or help those people embed change in those 167 hours. We have Family Hub public health screening information, so we have screening sessions. We can come into the Family Hub to access support and advice. We offer really strong public health campaigns, whether that's through posters, through our internet, through our social media accounts, through our public-facing website, but we're really strong on the public health offer and public health messaging. We gained lived experience charter status last year for our commitment to children and young people and building on lived experience, and that recognition that lived experience is as valuable as learned experience in delivering support, providing support to children, young people and their families. And that ranges from making sure that our workforce, we actively recruit and support a workforce of people with lived experience. So people who have been young carers, people who have come through the care system, people who are neurodiverse, and we enable them to be really successful in their career, and we really value that experience in developing and shaping our services. We've introduced therapeutic and emotion regulation workshops and coaching because it was identified that that's one of the areas which led to school disengagement, was that need for support around regulating my own emotions. We've integrated service collaboration, as I mentioned earlier. We've enhanced our community partnerships, reaching families where they're at through our community partners. And we've been able, working in partnership with Bernardo's, to strengthen our communities through grants, volunteering, and building on the role of community connectors to build and enhance those community assets. I'm going to breathe and hand you over to Lizzie.
So I'm Lizzie Kingston, I'm Head of Services in North East Essex, but I oversee the pre-birth to 5 delivery and all the changes within service. I will say that I'm also a health visitor as well, and that has helped me shape how we've developed the service over the last 8 years. So the Essex Child and Family Wellbeing Service predominantly provides the Healthy Child programme. The underpinning surveillance that comes from that, so we have multiple touch points where we have to see these children. We see them antenatal, but obviously a new birth again at 6 weeks, 1 and 2, and then when we go to school for the NCMP. That universal kind of screening and health promotion that we do absolutely fits in with 1001 days, the critical days of life, allowing early identification of need and access to targeted support, which is something that we really value and we actually promote and try and work the whole time. It's integral to achieving the system vision that is the core of the contract, and it's reflected in the Common Outcomes Framework, which is now being used to align the efforts across the system to improve health and wellbeing and education outcomes. I will say that all the heads of service participate within the Children's Partnership Boards across Essex, and we are modelling and changing our Live Well and Start Well model so it comes in line with that Common Outcomes Framework. The delivery of a brief intervention is an integral part of our surveillance programme, of which there are a minimum of 115,500 contacts per year. But I now want to mention the key major achievements which highlights the individuals where we have specifically tracked the families. These aren't just the routine touch points, these ones where we've specifically opened an outcome, worked with them and seen a change. And during the year of 2023 to 2024. So during that year, we delivered 55,640 child health reviews between birth and their third birthday, ensuring that children and their parents receive essential guidance and intervention at key developmental milestones, promoting positive parenting and early learning experiences. By getting in early and making sure that we follow that up by the development of our school readiness pathway, that means that we can actually ensure that the children, by the time they start school, because after 3, that's where the contact that we have sort of reduces, we need to make sure that that changes, that we can actually have that intervention early to make a difference. We've improved the safety of 218 at-risk children and young people, strengthening early intervention pathways. We've enabled 198 children to improve their bond with their primary caregiver, supporting attachment and emotional security. Those are just the ones that we've tracked. There are thousands more. We've supported 1,767 mothers and 1,036 children to improve their emotional wellbeing through targeted interventions. We've empowered 3,112 families to achieve improvements in parenting and child behaviours, reinforcing resilience and stability, looking at the whole picture that's around us, not just at what presents through the door. We can't just look at a child or a parent in isolation. We need to look at what the external factors, internal factors and other things that are affecting those families. We've helped 1,676 children not achieving a good level of development at their 2 to 3 year review, increase school readiness through tailored support plans and supporting parents within the home learning environment. But I know that there are thousands more. We've supported 571 primary caregivers and 447 children to feel less lonely, addressing social isolation and promoting community connections. With those elements, we work really closely with Home Start because they do a lot of our work that they can do multiple touch points, whereas we don't have the capacity to do that. They can actually do that long work that goes on for a long period of time, and some of them need it for many months. Over 70% of our registered population of the under 5-year-olds were reached by the service, which is consistently above the Ofsted recommendation of 65%. We have supported the uptake of the free early education funding for 2-year-olds. And that's quite difficult because the information we get is quite mixed. We then have to really contact those parents and really promote it. And that's worked amazingly because now we're 10% above the national average for the take-up on the fee 2, which is really important. And that's not universal fee 2, that is the targeted families. We promote the integrated review in partnership with the earliest providers, which helps parents support their child's learning, leading to earlier identification. But more importantly, the fact that we then work in partnership with the earlier setting, with the parent there as well, so that we can have a really universal, holistic way of doing it. We've recently done an audit of the integrated 2-year review, and there are some new things that are going to be coming out there with the proper shared care plan that we both hold and both monitor and move forwards to make that work even better. So Zoe mentioned earlier that we wanted to expand on the benefits of the integrated commissioning with the West Essex model, and that's actually really important. The co-commissioning approach at West Essex has significantly enhanced the integrated care and reduced the fragmented services for the children of West Essex. Because the service is co-commissioned with one provider who all have a shared vision of what can benefit the families, we feel that we've developed a seamless access to specialist paediatric health services, including autism and ADHD diagnosis, speech and language therapy and physiotherapy. The model ensures that we have coordinated multidisciplinary assessments, reducing the need for multiple referrals, which is really important, faster diagnosis and support plans, minimising delays in care, and better family outcomes through a streamlined and person-centred approach. In addition, this model has significantly influenced how we've provided specialist services in North Essex, which we took in September 2023. We have a standalone contract with SNE via Essex to deliver the children's therapies community specialist services, very similar to West Essex, but slightly different. By embedding the balance system, which is really important, and we are well underway in embedding balance within North Essex, the speech and language has been through an incredible transformation. We now have speech and language preschool drop-ins within the family hubs. That's the main where they're delivered, which means that we no longer have to have referrals. We no longer have to have any waiting lists for those children under the age of 5. We run the preschool drop-ins alongside the stay, play and learn sessions so that families participate in a group session where they meet other families, reducing isolation whilst they're waiting to actually go in and have their session with the speech and language therapist. And that way we can actually have that impact on kind of building an integrated, more resilient and less lonely community. The important part of that is the fact that we're also working with the link therapists into schools now, and the difference already has made means that when we took the service on, we had quite a large backlog of children that would waited up to 2 years. There is no backlog now. Those children are actually seen within schools, within link therapy, which is still being rolled out, but it's making a significant impact. The constant evolutionary kind of development of the Essex Child and Family Wellbeing Service is being influenced by a variety of factors, including our own desire to improve the services in Essex. I think it's quite important to know that the heads of service that are still in place are still the people that were there right at the beginning, and we've really, really pushed to make sure the service actually kind of flexes with the changes that are actually pushed in our direction. During the COVID-19 pandemic, I think that was where we probably enhanced our service beyond anything that any of us had done before. And we're really, really proud of the fact that we retained most of our appointments were done in a face-to-face way. I think we were one of the only services actually in the country to continue doing those new birth visits. Even though some of it was online, we still did a face-to-face contact with that child in the family home or on the doorstep or wherever we were allowed to actually do that, and that continued. All of those developmental reviews that we did, we may have done an assessment online, but then we invited them in. They had a face-to-face assessment where we could physically see that child within our family hubs and delivery sites, and that's really important. So we increased the outreach with vulnerable families and addressed kind of existing and new vulnerabilities that escalated by the extreme nature of the COVID-19 restrictions. We did quite a lot of work on that, and the children that we found coming through that were born just before COVID started, and for that 18-month period, we know that social emotional, speech and language was there as well, but social emotional and actual problem solving was one of the areas that was really hit hard, and that's something that we've done an awful lot of work on since then. We've done an expansion of digital and engagement strategies, supporting parents through online groups and advice sessions with a face-to-face offer available for those most in need. And we did emergency food and welfare support, which a lot of services did, but we felt that that was really important for us to do as well. Most of our solutions really continue today and have been expanded on to encourage our ability to support families in different ways that they feel are more useful while encouraging digital opportunities and capability. Most of our services, a lot of our services remain face-to-face because that's really important, but actually we can expand into digital where we feel that it works well. So we're presently expanding our digital skills to be more effective in reaching out to families, and that's something that Zoe works incredibly hard on. Without doubt for us, the most meaningful feedback that we receive is that from our families. And it's them who have been our greatest supporters who give the most compelling critiques of our service provision. So I've just got a couple of things to read out to you. I was struggling with my mental health after having a baby, and my health visitor was incredible. She supported me through every step and connected me to other parents going through similar experiences. The Family Hub helped my son with his speech delay. The team gave us techniques to use at home, and he is now thriving in nursery. And the last one, the emotional wellbeing support made such a difference to my teenager. I felt lost before, but now I have strategies to help. They're only little snippets, but they're really impactful, and I think that actually makes the reason why I come to work every day, to know that we are actually making a difference.
So to summarise, just reflecting on the last 8 years, we've seen firsthand what makes a real difference to families. Some key lessons for us. Early engagement really works. Timely intervention leads to better long-term outcomes. Integrated and relational working is really, really important. The strongest outcomes come when families feel cared about. Our relationships are integral. Being responsive and culturally sensitive really matters. Families and communities, they know what works for them. We have to deliver in a way that makes sense. And digital engagement is becoming more and more important. It isn't the whole answer, but it is part of it. Increasingly, I hear from people, children and young people don't want digital communication. And you're absolutely right, they don't. They want relationship-based communication, and you can't build a relationship digitally. But what you can do is build that relationship first and then have digital support that backs that up. And that does seem to work for our children and young people, and we need to be building a service that meets young people's needs. So our priorities over the next 2 years, as Sarah mentioned, the Nourishing the Futures conference this weekend. Some of our colleagues were there, and I was met on Saturday evening by a barrage of text messages which were, oh my God, we've got so much work to do. So obviously that's going to be one of our priorities. We want to strengthen the family hub approach and make it the foundation of multi-agency working across Essex. Lizzie talked about adopting the new Common Outcomes Framework and kind of moving much closer to that so we really align as a system, and the family hub underpins that framework. Expanding our outreach further to more underserved communities, making sure that actually those communities, because there are still communities that don't access our services or don't access them in the way that is helpful to them. We'll always continue to work on that. We want to improve digital access, and we want to deepen our partnership with youth services. There are a number of youth services across the county, and we want to really build that up and expand that so that we are much more focused on our children and young people. So in summary, we know that when families thrive, communities thrive, and when communities thrive, we all see the impact across health, education and social care. So our focus is clear. It's to keep working together, to keep learning from families, and to keep shaping a system that makes a real lasting difference to all.
Thank you very much. That was quite a big download.
Sorry.
Now, so we're going in to have a proper discussion about what members of the Health and Wellbeing Board would like to see in these contracts going forward. Any comments or questions at this stage?
Hands from, we've got Will Pope, Peter Davey, Paul Burstow, Ian Tompkins.
Right, so we'll do it in the order you said. So Will Pope, Peter Davey. Yep, Will.
Thank you, John. Thank you for the presentation. It's great and some great work. And I don't know about you, but I sort of got vibrations of Sure Start. And just a suggestion. I don't know whether you know Naomi Eisenstadt or not, who's just become a non-exec director at the DHSC, and she's very. Well, she was originally involved in Sure Start going, I see Chris nodding. You know well. I'd be very happy to facilitate an introduction for you, and maybe we could bring her up to, well, West or North or Mid, but if we, I think there's a bridge to be built there, and there might even be some more support brackets. Who knows, some money would be great, wouldn't it?
That'd be fabulous.
So very happy if you need me to help with that link.
I mean, can I just come and, Peter, forgive me, I know you want to come in, but you talk about Sure Start, and I will go into the council chamber every time, and there will be councillors from all sides who will say, why don't we just go back to Sure Start, it was much better. What's your response?
Who's that directed to? Myself? Ourselves? John?
You're the specialist here. Or so, do you think?
So, well, my response to that would be that, so I thought Sure Start principally was very helpful, and there are aspects of it which were great. My concern at the time was that we also had a lot of Sure Start centres, and I'm not sure the families that needed or that benefited from that help the most were the families that were in the centres. Hence the reason why the work that's just been described for us, it operates out of centres, but it isn't centre based, and it's also impact focused, outcome focused. So I want those improvements for families wherever they are in Essex and wherever that can be best undertaken. It doesn't have to happen in a centre. It's fine if it does happen in a centre, but it doesn't have to be that those families who need that support the most have to turn up at a centre to get it. And that was the problem that I encountered at an operational level in terms of the previous kind of Sure Start model.
Yeah, I agree with that. It actually, in some cases, widened inequality because a centre could be on one street, and if your postcode wasn't the same, one street would get to extra support, but the other side of the street wouldn't. And actually, for that reason, it was a good in principle, but it's better to strengthen a universal service and target it according to need than have it maybe in a centre.
And also Sure Start is 0 to 5, whereas we're in 0 to 19, 25 years.
Thank you. Yes, good point. But it's always a useful point to answer. Peter Davey.
Thank you very much for that very comprehensive report from the three of you. I'm lacking knowledge in this space, that's why I'm asking this question, because it doesn't come out in your report at all. I just wonder what the drivers are. Because if you start defining the family hub, and initially focusing on parents millennial, which is 81 to 96 in terms of when they were born, and then Gen Z between 13 and 28 years of age, there must be huge differences coming through in Gen Z compared to millennium, and what the family hub consists of and their attitude towards their children, and so it goes on, because out in the press at the moment, toilet training is going through the roof as being lack of, reading skills, lack of, again, it's becoming a headline again. And also holiday truancy is on the dramatic increase. Parents don't care, just take their parents out of school. All those three are linked to one or the other, and I'm just wondering how your thinking is changing in those spaces.
So we continuously adapt to meet the emerging needs. Sometimes we're quicker off the mark, and sometimes we find ourselves a bit behind the curve, and something will come up and surprise us. So attendance is a really good example. So in August this year, there became a statutory duty for all statutory partners to focus on reducing school attendance or increasing school attendance. We were already doing some peripheral work around things like emotional regulation and looking at children and young people who didn't go to school because their emotions prevented them from attending school. But as soon as that became statutory, we engaged with our partners to start saying, actually, what can our role be in this? And immediately we have altered all of our communications to parents so that actually, rather than it saying, here's what you can do to help your child recover from the anxiety or whatever it is they're struggling, we've now added a statement about the crucial importance of the education system and how you can re-engage with school. We now do a lot more work in terms of our partnership provision around how do we promote the relationships, how do we offer services within schools, so just to encourage that child to just come through the gates in the first place. We talk much more to parents about that 80% attendance and how crucial that is. So we constantly adapt our offer, our training to our workforce based on what the need is coming through. Things like toilet training was always on our agenda, but actually there was a move towards a much more natural parenting approach to when your child is ready. We're now seeing that actually that approach no longer works for our families. So we've readapted our model again now to be much more focused on actually targeted toilet training. So yeah, we try really hard to respond to what our parents need, what our communities are saying parents need, and what our education partners are saying, actually, here's the emerging trends that are coming through.
I could be totally wrong here, but just very quickly, Gen Z, that space that they're being brought up in, mental health seems to be paramount. There seems to be a different perception of mental health in their generation, the previous generation, which they're obviously going to pass on to their own children. And therefore, with the danger that they're in cotton wool, and they should be breaking out of that space. It's how you're handling all that, really.
Well, there was
I'm going to ask if we can move on in a minute, but yes, Carol.
Well, one of the presentations earlier mentioned the over-pathologisation of mental health, and that we talk a lot more in mental illness terms than we ever used to, rather than talking about normal childhood anxiety or normal low mood. So I think that's a shift within the system to try and normalise some of those behaviours and feelings, and we are a part of that system, so we're a part of that board that's looking at the mental health of children and young people.
Paul Barstow.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the presentation and the report. There's a lot in there and a lot in what you've said. I just wanted to pick up on one of the things that was raised earlier, and which has just been touched on again, around the mental health status of children and young people. It's just worth noting that the prevalence data that we have for England suggests that 1 in 5 young people who might have a mental disorder beyond normal. And at the moment, we only identify 1 in 4 of that 1 in 5. So we significantly under-identifying. So when someone says that we're suddenly seeing a significant number of additional people being identified or diagnosed, then we have to step back and ask ourselves the question, are we just actually catching up on the numbers of people we haven't identified who actually are languishing and experiencing not normal mental health conditions have not been well served and treated? So I just put that into the room because I think it's a question that John asked earlier on, and I think there is still more to be done in that space, but to do it in ways that are not about medicalising, pathologising.
I'm going to bring one or two more in for me. Ian Tompkins.
Yeah, I just wanted to chuck a bouquet in actually, because I'm very actively involved with this. And if you remember last Health and Well Board meeting, we had the Bump to 5 presentation, which is a direct reflection of what we are doing together in Harlow at the moment. And there's a real determination, and indeed we've got follow-up tomorrow, education, children, family and health services and so on, all coming together again as one to look at this. And Angela Cameron from the Harlow Treehouse Pub is leading our potty training classes. Not that we need them in our summit, but there's a real appetite and can-do attitude to develop together with complementary services in the voluntary sector, for instance. We really are all working with one vision and one mission.
So that was terrific, Ian. I'd love to, but your words were, I'd like to throw a bouquet into the meeting because I'm actively involved. So that felt like throwing a bouquet at yourself. But you just raised a point I was going to. So we heard it from you in Harlow last time. Subsequently, in teachers in Colchester, I was in teachers in Basildon. On Saturday, I was talking to. If HCRG contract is working so well, why are teachers in all parts of Essex reporting more children arriving at the school at the age of 4 and 5 who are not still reliant on nappies? How do those two things fit together?
Well, I guess the other side of that question, John, is that you don't know what it'd be like if the support from HCRG and Bananas wasn't there. And I think, I'm not quite sure what that phenomenon is about. We can debate that, endlessly, I guess.
And I appreciate the contract only touches a portion of people, but it's just that most visible sign, is all I was getting at. Will's whispering at me urgently. Does that mean there's more hands up, Will?
There's Lee Scott and Dan Doherty, the ones I've got.
Then let's just go in that order.
Lizzie, just come back on that point, please.
I just want to say, so during COVID, I mentioned the children born just before COVID, and for that following 18 months, we saw a real significant dip in social, emotional and problem-solving development. Our national average in Essex for development is about 86 to 87%, which we always meet, and it dipped right down to 77 and even 76% in North Essex. Through the work that we've done, that's actually recovered really nicely over that sort of 18 months following that kind of sector. So we're talking sort of 2 years ago, and it has maintained, and we are achieving the national average. So children are meeting the developmental milestones between the ages of 2 and 3, and the children that don't follow the school readiness pathway, they are supported until that they do meet. So you then, I think there's lots and lots of different factors of why children are attending school and maybe seen as not potty trained, but we're actually doing a little bit of an audit in that at the moment, working with Carolyn's team to actually look at multiple schools across the county to see what it is, because we've seen them at 2 to 3, we've worked with them, we've actually got them back to the levels they should be, which is your national average and above. And then what is it that then happens during that time? Because we're talking about potty training 1 year, we're talking about potty training again at the 2 year, we're offering those toilet training classes, and then they're going to school and they're not potty trained. So it is about establishing from the parents themselves, from the schools, from the earlier settings, from our experiences. So we're going to look at the child right from birth all the way through until they've been identified at school to actually kind of work out where these problems are being, where it's happening, where the issue is.
Just going to have to watch time now quite tightly. Please, Scott, then Dan Doherty.
Thanks, John. Just a brief question. You were mentioning quite rightly that some hard-to-reach groups and communities will not go to a centre. How are we tackling getting to those hard-to-reach communities to actually get them involved? Is there a programme in that?
So we...
Just short, you do need to tell us.
So our centres are not the beginning and end of the universe. We are operate as a service without walls was the phrase that was coined very early on. So we are out and about in communities. We do visits in families' homes. We're out in the schools. We have community connectors that are out connecting with local communities. We work with system partners and we actively go wherever we're invited or wherever we identify a need.
Thank you.
And
target groups within the contract council, Scott, as well. Those are kind of priority groups that we would expect to focus on.
Thanks, John. Possibly more for the workshop, and thanks, Lizzie. Thanks, it was fascinating. But generalising, the sense I got from you was that one of the key success factors for you was kind of establishing meaningful relationships with families, with communities. Interestingly, Active Essex thing that I was at recently, they were talking about the holiday activity and food programme, the success of various groups in establishing that. And lo and behold, the kind of key success factor was establishing meaningful relationships with. Heard a presentation from Jane's office, police, fire and crime, about antisocial behaviour, adolescence. Key success factor, again, surprise, meaningful relationships at a local community-based level. And I guess it strikes me that it's sort of placemaking in action, that all of these things, we're often targeting similar groups. You mentioned, and Councillor Scott mentioned, hard to reach communities, and that you're establishing meaningful place-based relationships with those communities. You might be encouraging childhood vaccination. I would wager that those people are the ones that are then not taking up COVID vaccinations, that are maybe on mental health radars. And I guess it just strikes me that it just still demonstrates that in many cases, no way a criticism of your service, please don't think it is, but that ultimately there are lots of different agencies that are endeavouring to try and establish meaningful local connections with communities. In your case, for young children and young people, often those families, we would need the same ambition for adult mental health. It might be the same for antisocial behaviour, or so on and so forth. And then leading into ICB conversations about kind of local placemaking, I just think it's a really interesting sort of common theme that comes from multiple different agencies. Don't have to respond to it, and maybe segues into the
I think a reflection, Dan.
Yeah, it's a reflection.
We've allowed this to go well over time, so it's all worked out in a way that other items didn't happen. But are there any other urgent questions before the providers take that lead? Do you know one of the best things the board chairman can ever have is when he sits there and there's lots and lots of questions coming up because he knows the audience is engaged. You've achieved that this morning. It's been very interesting, thank you, sir. And we will move on in a moment to have a discussion about things going forward. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So in terms of the main meeting, the Alliance update, anything by exception, Dan and Laura? Have you got anything more, anything verbal?
The only thing I wanted to say...
see more about the alliances, of course. I assume everybody gets the digest, do they? Everything's happened in the county. Health and wellbeing, more members get that?
I don't know.
Right. So I received, cabinet members receive a digest of absolutely everything going on. So if ever, I will ask that in future that's circulated to you, all of you, if you don't get it, if any of you tell me you do. But what you then need to do is go and find the alliance section in it, or pick out the bits that are interesting. Dan, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, the only thing I was going to say, John, I mean, it's very much as we were, with the exception that within the ICB at the moment, we're prioritising our medium-term plan kind of recovery programmes, and so a lot of Alliance staff are kind of, I guess, focusing on slightly different areas perhaps to what they were a few months ago.
Thoughts are very much with everybody.
Yeah, you can imagine. I suspect it would be the same for Laura and colleagues elsewhere.
Laura?
One by exception will be that Cabinet of Colchester City Council endorsed the place-based partnership approach.
I can't hear you, sorry.
Sorry, Cabinet in Colchester last week endorsed the place-based partnership approach document that we've been working on for a number of months, and the associated memorandum of understanding, and also endorsed for them to now have a health and wellbeing board. So they'll be the last place in Essex without a local health and wellbeing board. So that's going to be really positive because there'll be oversight of the work the Alliance is doing within the local authority more formally now. So that's a really positive step forward.
When I met with the ICB chairs earlier today, Dan and Laura, we were just talking about how good it would be. There are some brilliant examples in every part of the county. We saw the bump to 5 last time here from Harlow. Those of us at the Mid and South ICP saw the great work going on in Basildon with GPs and communities. We just agreed in principle, that's all, wouldn't it be good to have a half-day event or something where we showcased some great examples from each corner of the county, every quarter, or every bit of it, every fifth, every third, whatever it is. So can I just leave, Dan, for you and Laura to go to your colleagues and just think, in principle, something that doesn't cause a massive extra work, but which might let the whole county see some of the great things going on in different parts of the county. And if I could leave it as loose as that with you both, all right? I'm expecting that. Yes, Will?
And, well, Ian's here on behalf of Tony. I don't know if he wanted to add anything. West.
Just two things really. Is one work continue on care close to home and prevention, directly from Tony.
Nobody had anything to raise on the noting papers. I have not been advised of any other business.
Forward plan.
The forward plan is for noting. It will, of course, change. I always remind you it's your plan, not mine. Anything from anybody online? Did Helen Lincoln ever join us?
No, not so far.
No. Which is too late to join us now. She may have got warned off by the...
She did join, John.
Oh, good.
Sorry, I didn't see her.
Thanks, Lynette. Thank you. Anything from you, Lynette? No. So we're going to take a short break. What time is it, Will?
Sorry, just say the date of next meeting, which is the 21st of May, and then urgent business, of which there's none.
You have been notified that the meeting after that is the 23rd of July, which is a deviation from the third Wednesday of the month. It's because there's a full council meeting apparently the day before, but I don't like it. Anyway, there we are. Right, now, so what time is it?
It's 22 minutes past 11.
Would it be all right? Is 8 minutes enough, or do you need 13? We'll get coffees, use facilities. We'll start very soon after 11:30 to do the briefings. I suggest that we stick with children first, as we've just been doing that, and then we'll move on to the papers from the public health and life expectancy. If we work to the basis that we finish at 12:30, that's all right?